On this day in 1549, one of the most controversial figures of the Tudor age climbed the scaffold at the Tower of London. His name was Thomas Seymour, uncle to a king, brother to a queen, and husband to another. With charm, ambition, and reckless daring, he believed himself destined for greatness. Instead, he found infamy. Thomas Seymour was born into power. His sister Jane Seymour had been Henry VIII's third wife, and the only one to give the king a legitimate son, the future Edward VI. His elder brother, Edward Seymour, became Lord Protector during Edward's boyhood reign, ruling England in all but name. And this was the root of Thomas's undoing. He envied his brother's authority, and his hunger for power would push him further than his wits could carry him. Contemporaries saw in Thomas everything that made a Tudor courtier dangerous. Historian David Starkey described him as tall, well-built, and a dashing beard and auburn hair, irresistible to women. And Nicholas Throckmorton, a man who knew him very well, was more cutting, fierce in courage, courtly in fashion, but somewhat empty of matter. Thomas, in other words, had plenty of charm, but little sense, yet his rise seemed unstoppable. In 1547, just months after Henry VIII's death, Thomas shocked the realm by secretly marrying Catherine Parr, Henry's last queen. Rumour had long suggested the two had been in love before her royal marriage, and once widowed, Catherine did not resist his advances. However, the speed of the marriage and Thomas's eagerness to grasp the influence it brought damaged his reputation. He was suddenly stepfather to Henry VIII's children, including the young Elizabeth Tudor, and this gave him access to dangerous new opportunities. Elizabeth was just a teenager when she lived under the same roof as Thomas and Catherine. It was here that Thomas's behaviour crossed into scandal. Reports claim he would enter Elizabeth's chambers in the early morning, tickling her, slapping her playfully, even cutting her dress to shreds in horseplay. Catherine at first tolerated this behaviour, even joining in at times, but the line was crossed when she allegedly discovered Elizabeth in her husband's arms. The princess was quickly removed from the household. The details remain murky. Was Elizabeth a victim of his over-familiarity or a confused participant? What is clear is that Thomas Seymour's conduct toward the future queen left a stain on his reputation and a whisper of scandal that would never quite leave Elizabeth herself. After Catherine Parr died in 1548, Thomas grew more reckless. Obsessed with power, he began plotting against his brother, the Lord Protector. He imagined himself guiding young Edward VI directly, positioning himself as the boy king's chief advisor. And on the night of the 16th of January 1549, he took his wildest gamble yet. Breaking into the king's apartment at Hampton Court, Thomas attempted to seize Edward from his bed, but fate intervened. The king's little spaniel barked furiously, and in a panic moment, Thomas killed a dog with his dagger. The noise roused Edward, guards rushed in, and Thomas was captured. And from that moment, his fate was sealed. Thomas was charged with 33 counts of treason, ranging from plotting to overthrow his brother to endangering the king himself. Many expected clemency. After all, he was the king's uncle, and blood ties in the Tudor world still carried weight. But neither Edward Seymour nor Edward VI lifted a hand to save him. On the 20th of March 1549, Thomas Seymour was executed on Tower Hill. It took 2 blows of the axe to sever his head. His title and wealth were stripped away, his legacy reduced to scandal and folly, and among his contemporaries his death was viewed with shock. Princess Elizabeth, who had once been his ward, summed him up best. This day died a man with much wit and very little judgment. Thomas Seymour's life remains a lesson in Tudor politics. Charm and good looks could carry you far, but reckless ambition could destroy you just as quickly. He might have been remembered as the Queen's husband, the King's uncle, or even the trusted advisor of a monarch. Instead, history remembers him as a man who reached too high and paid the ultimate price. If you want more stories of ambition, betrayal and downfall in the Tudor world, follow along, because Thomas Seymour was far from the only man who lost his head for reaching too far.